Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Sunday edition of our Talks Within the Nine-Sided Circle. I'm one of your hosts, Nora Kyle, along with
your other one of your hosts, Mushtaq Ali.
Yes, and as you may know already, we do this every weekend, except when we send out notices, ideally to let people know that we're having a change of plans. But when we are here, we do both a live session where we have several people joining us, and we also post the recorded version on YouTube after the fact for people who aren't able to join us live. And you know, what's that?
And that means if you are listening to this on YouTube, we invite you, nay, we implore you to go right down there and click that subscribe button, because we love to have subscribers, and click the bell so that you can be notified when we do new videos, which we do at least once a week, sometimes more, but rarely less. And we are almost to 200 subscribers. We have 191 when I checked yesterday. So for all of you, any of you who subscribe and get us past 200 this week, we have a special deal for you. If you have subscribed to us and you want, in the comments to this video, you can suggest a topic. And as long as it is not immoral, illegal, or fattening, we'll take you up on it. So here's your chance to get us to talk about what you want instead of what we want.
Always good. We always welcome that. And we also welcome your feedback. If you enjoy this video, give us a thumbs up. If you don't enjoy it, give us a thumbs down, because that's feedback that we utilize to shape our content and shape our message in a way that's going to make sense to our listeners. You know, if you don't like it.
And if you like this video, share it with a friend or two.
Yes, please do.
If you hate this video, share it with an enemy. Seriously. We will vex them at least as badly as we vex you. So what are we talking about tonight, Noor?
Well,
once you stop joking.
Beverage, getting a little aggressive. All right, so we're going to be talking about a Gurdjieffian concept that most people find a little bit difficult to follow. So why don't you tell us a bit about that, Mr.
Okay, I love your understatement. This is one of the more obtuse ideas that I've ever run across in Gurdjieff's works. You find him talking about this in various different places in Beelzebub's Tales to His Grandson, which is a difficult book to read at the best of times. So in this, he introduces this concept that he calls Hasnamuss and Hasnamusses, which is, I guess, the plural. And he talks about them as being a particular kind of person. And he lays the blame for much of civilization's problems at the feet of this person, or this kind of person. And so, given that we are in the midst of a massive explosion of Hasnamuss people impinging upon our common consciousness, as Mr. G would say, I thought it might be interesting to go over what the heck this means in something that approximates normal English. And I think that it could be a little fun. So, a Hasnamuss person is a class of people, an individual or a class of people who manifest abnormal impulses and embody the worst psychopathology of humankind, who cause the most suffering, degeneracy, falsity, and misunderstanding among these strange three-brained beings that we call humans. Now, in the book, Gurdjieff describes these people as, I have my notes here because I can't even begin to remember all of this weird language that he used. Already definitized common presences, in which data has not been crystallized for the divine impulse of objective conscience. So, what he's saying here is that this kind of person has their consciousness crystallized, sedimented is a term I like to use, but without having developed conscience or empathy. And with no conscience and no empathy, any human being is going to wreak havoc on the world to a greater or lesser extent. And Gurdjieff's idea is that this kind of person can be created at many different levels, and including people that have very highly evolved, as he says, being bodies, though I take that to mean certain ways their consciousness is evolved, but without this important trait that we all need in order to function correctly in the world. You cannot function correctly without conscience. And I would like to suggest to you that we have been for the last several decades, if not more, selecting evolutionarily, as it were, for these kind of people. The Hasnamuss person is very successful these days. If you look at the highest levels of politics, the highest levels of business, the highest levels of academia, you will find it populated by these kinds of people. You might even have a little bit of this yourself. Stranger things have happened.
Are they what modern people would call sociopaths?
Sociopaths are definitely part of this. Gurdjieff gives 7 qualities of person that can develop this. So I would say that if you took all 7 of these and lumped them together, you would have generally what we would call antisocial personality disorder or something along those lines. And that would include a whole spectrum between psychopaths, sociopaths, narcissists, and various other subcategories. And we're going to go over the categories very shortly. And look at how you get each of these categories instilled in a person, or one of these categories instilled in a person. Now, the idea that I want you to consider is we probably all, each of us, have at least a little bit of this in ourselves. I can tell you for me, I definitely have developed some Hasnamuss personality qualities coming up in the world. And I had to work very, very hard to mitigate them. Because as he describes it, it's literally as if it were a crystallization on your body. At some level, it might look like that because of the way the body stores stuff. I take it mostly as a metaphor, but you have to strip all of that off. And if you've ever been through the kind of deep tissue, say, Rolfing, that literally tears the fascia adhesions from the muscles, you know how painful that stripping off can be. And so it's very difficult to work on this. We all must, and we all must consider that we might have at least a little bit of this in ourselves where we choose not to act from conscience. I can tell you, This was a very long time ago with my very, very first Sufi teacher. May God keep his secret. I was sitting in the khanaga one day sipping tea by the bookcase where I like to hang out. And he just walked in the room and looked at me and said, "Sufi, why do you only care about yourself?" And walked out. And I'm there, And older, wiser dervishes came over and said, "It's okay, just let it sink in."
Yeah, how did that feel for you?
Oh, it was like being hit up the side of the head with a 2x4. You know, because he said it with some, as we say, a bit of barakah. There was no anger or anything like that, but it was very emphatic. This is you, and you need to deal with this. Why have you let yourself become like this? And you know, my image of myself was as a very empathetic person, but in doing a lot of self-examination, I realized that I was not nearly as empathetic as I like to believe myself, and so had to do some stripping off of the old paint.
That kind of dovetails with what Sheree is asking. As a parallel metaphor, hardening of the heart on an emotional level.
Yeah, you know, that's a good term. It reminds me of Pharaoh, right? If you remember your Exodus, Moses goes to Pharaoh and says, "Pharaoh, let my people go." And Pharaoh says, "I'm going to harden my heart against you, and I'm not going to do what's right, and I'm going to treat you like objects." Didn't say exactly that, but that's what he was saying. So yeah, like that. So we all have a little bit of this, probably. The idea is to strip off that crust that makes us hold this in and develop our conscience and our empathy by main force of will, if nothing else. And this is the hard work of the path. This is not for weaklings. This is where you have to take a look at yourself and go, "Oh yeah, I've done all of these things in an incredibly selfish way. And I have to break these habits and rewire them if I actually want to have higher being bodies," as Mr. G says. Or as Sufis say, to build my souls. So there are 7 possibilities for this. And again, Gurdjieff uses the weirdest possible language. He describes 7 Naloo-osnian spectrum of impulses, which form a certain substance within the Hasnamuss individuals. I remember the first time I read that, I said, "What?" And then I looked for a glossary and there wasn't one. And it took me years to figure out what the hell that meant. And most of these so-called Gurdjieff teachers who are out there in the world today cannot tell you what this means, at least in my experience. I never ran across one who would do anything other than open and close their mouth like a fish when you ask them. So, Naloo-osnian spectrum of impulses. Forget about what that sounds like. What it is, now you know that processes tend to follow the octave. Everything in the world follows the octave. You know, the periodic table, music, we all like the octave. So 7 means the octave doesn't complete itself at the 8th note. imagine something that retards your process and makes you stop at any one of these notes as you're going through the process of your own development. So you have your do, re, mi, right? Mi, re, do. And you stop at the mi. There is some impulse that fixates you there. And this goes into the fixation of attention that we talk about. And as it fixates you at that point within the octave, the energy has to do something, right? The energy of the impulse that's carrying you through the octave has to do something, and it can't go forward because it can't go without you. So it crystallizes. It experiences a state change. I think of it, and the way I finally began to understand this as metaphor, not as reality, but as metaphor, is as if wherever you stopped on this allowed, it was as if you were in some sort of an electrochemical bath, and it allowed whatever, you know, copper or gold or whatever was in that bath to form on you through electroplating. If you're just moving through the bath and you don't stop, it doesn't form on you. But if you stop there and you just abide at that place, whatever is in that particular bath begins to form a crust on you. This is entirely a metaphor. This is not an actual thing, but it's the way I understood it for the first time. What happens when you do not complete the process of developing your conscience? Now, just to recap something on that, conscience and empathy are the key ingredients that you need to move from your larval stage to your adult stage. Without those two things, you do not become an adult human being. To the extent to which you have true being conscience, that's the extent to which you can metamorphosize into an adult. This is probably also metaphor, but it's a good one. Are we making sense so far?
Mm-hmm.
Or at least you're following me? As we like to say, it's as clear as mud, but it covers the ground.
And if you do have any questions thus far, you know, always feel free to put them out there. But if not, Mr. feel free to continue.
Okay, I will feel free to continue. I was trying to figure out wonder hosts.
That's from the beginning of our video when we were introducing ourselves.
Ah.
That was Shuri being...
making fun of us.
Yes, in a loving way, which I appreciate.
Somebody has to make fun of us. If we don't have people making fun of us, we run the risk of taking ourselves seriously. And that would be a shame. So let's talk about the 7 places that you can stop your process that creates something horrible. The first place is it allows you to create every kind of depravity, conscious as well as unconscious. In the second one, you develop the feeling of self-satisfaction from leading others astray. In other words, this is where you find priests, ministers, and politicians at this one. Did I say that out loud? The third impulse is the irresistible inclination to destroy the existence of other breathing creatures. Think about what that means. Think about the little kid who pulls the wings off flies. Now think about that little kid with those same qualities at 30. So that's what we're talking about there. Number 4, the urge to become free from the necessity of actualizing the being efforts demanded by nature. That is a very fancy way of saying not following your path. This is the, I think you can, somebody worked out all of the 7 deadly sins on this list, and this would be sloth. Number 5, the attempt by every kind of artificiality to conceal from others that in their others what in their opinion are not one's, are one's, let me try this again. The attempt by every kind of artificiality to conceal from others what in their opinions are one's physical defects. This would also include one's mental, spiritual, and emotional defects.
So this would be about yourself, right?
Yes.
Like what you observe in yourself to be your defects and then covering them up.
Yeah, think about confusion of feeling types on the fixations on the Enneagram.
Yeah, and this is, I say observe, but really it is a matter of opinion, right?
Yeah.
Like your perception of yourself, which may or may not be accurate.
Yep, but it is always contrasted against something external.
Mm.
This is why so many people watch whoever is famous for being famous these days. I don't even know. I mean, I stopped paying attention to that back when Paris Hilton was a thing. And I think that we've had several evolutions of that since then. People attempt to emulate these people in order to hide what they perceive of as their own flaws. Then we got the calm self-contentment and the use of what is not personally deserved. That's an interesting one. Being contented to use what is not personally deserved. You want to find somebody who does this? Go to any hedge fund. Seriously. Go to, say, the people who spend $500,000 to get their worthless children into an Ivy League university. Things like that. And then lastly, but not leastly, we have the striving to be not what one is. What do you think that might mean? The striving to be not what one is. Take your time. I'll just sit here until you answer.
Well, one possibility would be that what one is a human being who is not wildly different from other human beings, and the not what one is trying to present oneself as extremely superior.
Yeah, that works. If we can say stuff like this in straight English, it makes you really wonder why Gurdjieff had to use all of these weird terms.
He thought it was important, but I don't know why.
Yeah, I think he wanted people to really have to concentrate on what the words meant. Any other ideas?
I noticed Zainab has herself unmuted. Did you have a thought, Zainab?
Yeah, I was thinking, as you want to be someone else, that's where jealousy and things like this comes up, like not accepting who you truly are and just having images of other people and wanting to be something else.
Yep, I would say that that's dead on.
Thanks, Zainab and Nancy. How about you, Omar?
I guess I pretty much agree with what was said before. I think it's basically an attempt to be some identity rather than yourself, you know, and put the energy into being that identity.
That sounds pretty much dead on.
You got enough dead bodies around here now that should be enough for you. Right?
How about you, Shuri?
It just reminded me of when I first started in stockbroking, and there were people who were employed on a certain date, and then as you progress through all the different positions, people that had come much later who superseded those people that were still plodding along, those people that were plodding along were very upset because they felt like they were being overlooked or whatever, but they were still striving to be someone they weren't ready yet, they weren't prepared. There was a lot of ego in the work that we were doing. You had to have certain skill sets, but people looked at the glamour of the job, and so they wanted to be a trader, or they wanted to be some kind of person on talking to clients and things, but they were just kids out of school, and you think, no, you've got to do the work first. So it always reminded me that on many different things that we learn, it's like people are wanting instant satisfaction in, I'll take up piano and I can learn it overnight. No, it doesn't work like that. You know, even all the singing lessons that you talk about, you're not going to be very good at what you do yet. You haven't done any work to deserve the thing that you're looking at. But people seem to jump ahead and think they've got, they deserve something that they don't have any qualification for.
Yeah, we know about that one here in this country because we have a president who is utterly unqualified for the job and yet thinks he deserves it and can do it, and is pretending that he's somebody who can actually do the work with zero evidence of this being the case. That's the ultimate.
In business, where you see people claiming they can do certain procedures or medicine or something, and they've only got a certificate, and you just think, really? Yeah, that doesn't make you a teacher. You've just got a certificate to say you did a weekend workshop, and yet they can put a shingle out to say, I can do all these things or all these cosmetic procedures. And I just heard on the radio this morning that one of the big things that's coming out of this lockdown is tattoo removal. So people are looking at whatever's on their body thinking, I don't like this anymore, so they want it removed. But there are people who actually haven't done the work to be a removalist, and they're doing botch jobs, or they're doing tattoos that are really hideously ugly. And you just think, oh my God, you know, we, I think as people who are working on waking up, when we're doing things, we have to do our due diligence and make sure the people we interact with deserve our trust, I guess, because that's what it is. There are people claiming to be and striving to be people who are not that thing.
Yep.
You just think, oh, there's not a charlatan.
That is incredibly important. If we are going to put it out there that we can do this thing, then we have to actually be able to do this thing. You know, we got to be there where the rubber meets the road. We got to put our money where our mouth is, as it were. Because if you can't do the thing, you're going to hurt somebody. And we used to see this in martial arts all the time. People went to martial arts school and they didn't go there to learn martial arts. They didn't go there to learn the style. They went there to get a black belt. and they would go to the school where they would get the black belt the quickest. And then they could say, I have a black belt. And
Yeah.
I would have sold them a black belt for $10.
I mean, I was just about to say,
Yeah.
yeah, like in response to Cherie's comment about the certificate, like, I mean, as Mishtak and I have talked about, even in terms of, you know, passing on the connection of lineage and all that stuff, like a piece of paper does not do that. You have to invest yourself in your time and your energy in that so that you can produce those results and you know, do that work in an ethical, meaningful, effective way.
Yep.
You Sufis talk about the fruit of the spirit.
Not exactly in the way that a Christian would talk about that, but the concept of by their fruits you will know them is pretty solidly worked in. It's just not languaged in that way. I always like, do they walk their talk? Or one of my favorites, which will make no sense outside of the Southwest, is I can remember one of my grandmas saying, "Yeah, but do they grow corn?" You know, as literally, are they producing something that will nourish not just them but everybody around them, as the criteria by which they are judged? And that's one that I keep really close to me. Am I growing corn? Or am I just being corny? Yuck, 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 yuck. See what I did there?
Yeah, I thought you were going to say all had and no cattle.
Well, there's that one too.
Yeah. So Mr. Kim has a question that I wanted to make sure we asked. Okay. And he asks, first, does one have to know what one is supposed to be?
No. You can start by knowing that you don't know. Knowing that you don't know is actually a very high state of consciousness, because you can work with that. It's when you pretend to know that you get stuck. So take the martial arts guy. He has a black belt. Doesn't know what to do with it. He doesn't know that the only reason you have it is to hold up your pants. And so he goes and he opens up a school and he pretends that he knows. And he teaches these people all of this stuff that he calls self-defense. And then some fool goes out and gets into a fight and gets seriously hurt because he actually never learned anything worthwhile because the guy had nothing worthwhile to teach. But if the guy with the black belt admitted to himself, oh, I have this piece of cloth and I still don't know the martial art, he wouldn't have done that. Does that make sense, Mr. Kim?
Yes. I'll think about it.
Think about it. I like your background, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, Rashak. So let me see if I understand any of this. When you started out, I thought you were suggesting that there was a process of developing your conscience.
Yes, I am suggesting that.
Right. And that process seems like it has, what, 8 steps? And that or it can be broken down into 8 steps. And that if you stop at any one of those first 7 steps, you start exhibiting these items from the spectrum of impulses. Is that correct?
More or less. I mean, that's the general idea. I have a feeling that it is more complicated than that, but I'm a big believer tonight in simplicity because we don't have 4 hours to talk about this. So we're keeping it simple.
there's either a way to cut me off, and in which case I'll accept that.
No, I'm not cutting you off. I'm just telling you that I am being specifically not going into great detail because we can too easily get lost in the minutia.
I would think it's not so much minutia here, but I would be curious about, like, what is the step of development that, for example, if you stop at it, leads to every kind of depravity, conscious as well as unconscious, and similarly for the other ones. I mean, presumably there's a positive series of developmental steps of consciousness which you have in mind, which, when they get aborted, comes out as these various impulses. And I guess I'm trying to see the correlation there.
Yeah, and that's going to be a whole nother talk.
Okay, all right.
Your question is valid. Your question is useful. And your question is one I want to answer, but I'm looking at the time and going, we only have 10 minutes left.
Good enough. I'll wait for it next year or whatever.
Yeah, nag me, and we will do another talk on this.
Yeah, I'll try to make a note so that we have that on our docket for things that would be worthwhile to discuss. Thank you.
Now, Gurdjieff introduces an interesting term. He sometimes uses the term evil God, and more tellingly, evil God of self-calming. And he associates this specifically with the fourth impulse, which is the urge to be free from the necessity of actualizing the being efforts demanded by nature. And he points out that this is giving yourself over to this, what he calls the evil God of self-calming, and it will lead to addictions such as alcoholism, addiction to opiates or cocaine or cigarettes, or any number of other things. He also points out that these sorts of individuals have also destroyed and persecuted the various sacred messengers and their followers and obscured the genuine teachings which might have changed human history and brought more normal conditions. And we've seen this. If you look at like the history of Christianity, I love to pick on this one. You have the disciples of Jesus, the people who actually hung out with Yeshua ben Maryam and learned from him. And they had one take on his teachings. And then you have this guy who never met him, never talked to him, knew nothing about his teachings, who comes in and co-opts the entire religion and turns it from what it was into something completely different and basically neutered it.
Are you talking about Paul?
Or Saul of Tarsus. I don't even like calling him Paul. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, something just happened with all of the cameras. Everybody's camera just disappeared.
Wow, that did not.
Nancy's back. You're back. I think the internet just glitched. But anyway, yeah, I just getting a message saying the internet connection is unstable and bandwidth is low. I suspect that this has to do with the fires. They're probably burning up cables right and left.
I can still see everybody.
Good.
It never glitched for me at all.
People are starting to come back. Anyway, scared me for a second there. What do you do if everybody disappears?
You discover your true nature.
Yeah.
Niall just disappeared.
Yeah. Yeah, Noor just disappeared, and she's on the same server as me, and on the same wireless, and she's just coming back in. Yeah, so we're having some glitches here, which are probably due to the wild winds and fires and smoke and everything. So if we disappear, it's not because we don't like you. Where are you, Kyle? There she is.
Yeah, my connection is unstable. Sorry about that, guys.
Yep, not your fault.
Totally booted me off.
Yeah.
Anyway, don't let me interrupt.
So we have seen this happen over and over again. It's happened in Christianity. It's happened with Islam. It's happened with Buddhism. You know, it's happened with Taoism. It's happened with every kind of religion you can ever think of. Within a generation, somebody comes in and co-opts it. Turns it from what it was into something that is not functional for waking up, but is great for controlling people. So, in the last few minutes, let's talk about what you can do about this. This is all very negative stuff. And as I said, everybody probably has a little bit of this in them. This is where self-observation becomes very, very important. The ability to tell yourself the objective truth about your desires and behaviors and look at them clearly is the only way I know of out of this. As painful as that might be, look at the things that stop you and tell yourself the truth about them. Look at the things that hold you in place and tell yourself the truth about them. Look at your illusions and tell yourself the truth about them. It's more fun than pulling teeth, but not much. Definitely not much. But that's how you begin to strip away any crystallization that you might have done on your soul that allows you to operate as a more or less narcissistic, sociopathic, psychopathic being. Or someone whose conscience is not fully developed and whose empathy could be stronger. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It seems like some of that, at least I can do myself, some of it seems like attributes that are harder to spot, that you almost need someone else to spot it for you, or at least hold your fire to hold your feet to the fire till you do spot it.
Well, definitely it is a teacher's job to point this out to you. You have to have the right teacher. You have to have somebody who has been through it themselves and knows what the hell they're doing. Otherwise, they aren't going to point out the right things at the right time. I mean, when my first teacher pointed this out to me, he timed it to a T. It was exactly the time when I could hear it and do something about it. If somebody else had walked up to me on the street and said the same thing, I would have ignored them. Or told them to go get stuffed or whatever.
But some of this you can do on your own.
Yes, some of this you can do on your own. And probably you need to do on your own. You need to do on your own what you can do on your own.
Agreed.
Any other thoughts and questions?
Well, a minor one, but I was wondering whether some people, I don't know how to put this, have the irresponsibility without the sadism.
Oh yeah. Sadism is just a part of it. It's not a particular set of behaviors. It is a lack of conscience and a lack of empathy that you see here, and it manifests in a number of different ways.
Would you say compassion is an equally good word, or do you think?
Yeah, compassion is a very good word.
Yeah, I mean, it's the word I personally prefer
Yeah.
because I think it implies a bit less enmeshment in a sense, but I think there may be a place for the word empathy as well. So I wanted to just
Yeah, I've always
touch
used
on that.
empathy, so that's the one I'm comfortable with.
Yeah, yeah, cool.
But I think conscience is a perfect word for this.
Yeah, I can't think of a word I would use instead of that. So I think it's a perfectly fine word. Yeah.
All right. So that's our thing for tonight. Let me tell you some other things. The newsletter just came out. If you got the newsletter, you should read it because it's very exciting.
Yep, I'm the one who writes the newsletters, so I get kind of excited to send them out. And those come from me.
Yes.
And they're always about a little bit of an update about how we're doing and then what we're up to and what's next on our 9-sided circle to-do list.
Yep.
Yep.
We are working hard right now on a book, which will be very, very exciting. World changing.
Yes, and we are both working on the writing on that, Mushtak primarily, but I will be doing some as well. I'm doing the editing, so it's a big project and it should be a lot of work and a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Do we want to? What's
do
that?
Do either of you have a grandson? So it's going to be a tales for?
Sorry, I couldn't hear what you said.
I
What
said,
was
do either of you have a grandson for whom these are going to be the tales?
No.
Okay.
No, that's already been done. So that's what we got.
Yep. So that's what we've got for this week. Check out the newsletter if you haven't already. I've also posted it to my Facebook page and you can check it out there if you don't get our emails, but this is definitely a plug for our mailing list for those who have not signed up for it already. That's how you're going to get the notifications about the newsletter, about events we're doing, links to our content that we posted in various places and things like that.
Yeah. All right. So I think we will wrap it up for the evening, and thank you all for coming, and we will see you next week.